Welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate from both sides of Stanley Park, whether it be blue or red. Sponsored by Their Clothing, Camper Kings UK, and affiliation with BetMate.
Hello everyone, welcome to Across the Park podcast, episode 35 of our 2021-2022 season. Myself, Judgy and Pricey on the blue side, and we've got Terry and Phil on the red side. Before we get going, massive thanks to our long-standing sponsors, Camper Kings UK. As Millsy always puts it, great time to get away. Weather's not so great at the moment, but you can be safe in the warmth of your camper van if you're one of those who wants to go out and explore. I know Phil's a big fan of getting out there and going on his walks and everything. So I think Phil's acquired the services quite a few times. But if you do quote Across the Park podcast, you will get a free bottle of champagne and free insurance when you book it. So check those guys out. And thanks again for all their support. For a change, we've got an optimistic, positive podcast to bring you. It's normally the Blues sitting here waiting to take punishments off the Reds and talking about, yet another defeat and the Reds rubbing it in. Now, they can still rub it in, of course, but we've got slightly more positive outcome for the Blues this weekend. This weekend's just gone. So Everton recorded a massive victory, of course, on Sunday at home to Chelsea, whilst Liverpool maintained their title challenge with a 1-0 victory away to Newcastle. And that's where we're going to start. Obviously, it's another 3 points, Terry and Phil, which is vital and what it's about at this moment in time. But do you feel it was a bit of a missed opportunity, and was that scoreline slightly flattering for Newcastle in the 1-0?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it feels like ages ago now after what's happened, with yesterday and stuff, and obviously we're a bit later in the week covering it. But when I look at that Newcastle game, I think it was a tricky one. It was one that I think people were looking at, they're a bit resurgent, Newcastle, aren't they? I think they were up to 9th, and I think they'd won, the last 6 games or something like that. So, they were looking at that, probably thinking, Liverpool are not going to be relishing coming here in the early kickoff. And we were looking at it, probably some of us thinking, we're going to have to rotate. We just played Villarreal at home. We know we got the second leg against Villarreal coming in. I think looking at that game, obviously getting the points was the most important thing. Again, kicking it back, to like batting it back to City and say, right, well, we've got our points on the board. That was the most important thing. But if there was one thing to take from the game, I think it was a good performance. But we had so many chances, Phil, and we just didn't really, we didn't put the tie to, the results beyond reach for Newcastle, did we? We left it a bit late and it got a bit nervy, and that has probably hindered us a little bit on the goal difference front with City.
Yeah, we sort of done the same thing in the first leg against Villarreal as well. Like, a lot of people were happy with 2-0, but there were other people saying we had a chance to put that to bed. And, looking back to yesterday, it turned out we could have done with a few more goals in the first leg. So it had been a little bit of almost a theme that we were taking our foot off the gas a little bit when we could have put on. And that's potentially been a theme like throughout the season at some points. Like you were saying, it's been a while at one point before you'd see Liverpool just like do it for 90 minutes. We're kind of doing enough and then taking our foot off the gas, taking players off the pitch and using the squad. And who can say that that's been the wrong thing to do when we're for the first time ever, we're the only team who's ever been in all 4 cups at this stage. So that comes into it. But of course, in an ideal world, you want more goals and the goal difference is getting close now. I think there's 1 in it, but we're the team that's ahead, thankfully, and there's 4 games to go. So, I take the point, though, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I've said it in the past where I thought we've been guilty of taking our foot off the gas and stuff, I don't think we actually did against Newcastle. We created lots of chances. I don't think it was like, we sort of eased off once we got in the lead and just protected the 1-0 win. We didn't. We just weren't clinical enough on the day, which is unlike us, like in terms of, because we looked like we were in the mood and we were creating, and the forwards looked like, the movement was very good and the chances were coming in. But for whatever reason, we just couldn't sort of, get that ball in the back of the net a bit more. And now, obviously, City ended up, they had to play Leeds afterwards. And although Leeds gave a good account of themselves, for about an hour, I don't think the scoreline quite reflected how that game went. But City have shown that ruthless streak there. Do you know what I mean? Like even they're the opposite. We had a very comfortable game against Newcastle, only won 1-0. They had a bit of a tricky game against Leeds, and it didn't have it all their own way. And they've gone on and put a low past Leeds. So
yeah, depressing because that was the game that the Reds were looking at, thinking that could be the one. Leeds have got a certain style that City don't really like. But I was watching it as soon as the first goal went in, turned it off. Couldn't be bothered. You know what's going to happen from there on, don't you? And the full gate's open for them. So,
Liverpool, to be honest, Phil.
What's that?
I do that when I'm watching Liverpool. As soon as the first goal goes in, turn it off.
I know the feeling. I've been doing that for years with City. I don't watch them anymore. I shouldn't have put that on, to be honest. Ever since the Leicester game in the other season where we got about 97 points. Yeah. It's horrible, isn't it? But that's the relentlessness of this league. And imagine putting up to like late 90s or mid 90s point tallies, Terry, on 2 occasions to knock the league by a point or something. Grim thought.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's like you say, Phil. There's a lot of positives to take from the position you're in. You can't not be pleased with, fighting on all fronts at this stage of the season. No team in the world would be. Are you somewhat worried? Now we can obviously bring into context or put into context the result last night, which was a magnificent one for the club. But are you somewhat worried thinking about the first half performance and maybe a little bit of the Newcastle game where you're not able to maybe put them away? That's slight negative momentum coming into the next few games. Obviously, look, the result in the second half performance was brilliant, and that's what matters. But does that the little bit of sluggishness worry us a little bit?
I mean, it's got to, hasn't it? I think it's not so much putting the chances away last night. It was we were defensively, mind you want to say defensively, just Everton was absolutely awful in the first half, weren't it, Terry? I think that's the worst we've played this season now, from my memory, first half of that game. So
it's probably as bad as we looked, for that period in January last season when we lost 6 at home, where we just looked in absolute shambles, like no one knew what they were doing and couldn't string a pass together. The defence was a mess and stuff. And I think when I look at that last night, I wouldn't say I'm worried. I mean, I think there's potential that there was a little bit of tiredness in the legs. We asked to move the Newcastle game and got denied, and other teams are seeing their games get moved, like West Ham and stuff, which is frustrating. And playing with so much pressure, where every game is like a cup final, and you're playing every 2 or 3 days, it's bound to start wearing on the players a little bit. So maybe there was a little bit of that crept in the first half last night. But I think the main thing was 2-0 was one of them sort of scorelines, wasn't it? Where it's a bit of a tricky one. Like, what do you do? Do you sort of just ease your way into the game and think that they need to come out and we'll get in behind them? Or do you go and put the tie to bed? It's like one of them sort of in-betweeny ones.
Well,
but from them. And I think the fact that they just scored so early just completely blew our plan out the water. And there was a lot of...
If I was looking at that from the if I was the Liverpool manager, you know what they're going to do. The fans were going to be up for it. The stadium was going to be aggressive. The players were going to be aggressive, and they're going to go for it. And their plan was probably to get an early goal. So the one thing we needed to do was keep hold of the ball and make sure that whatever happens, that doesn't happen, and it did. So,
yeah, but I think we would have backed ourselves to be good enough that once we've got the ball, as you say, we can keep hold of it. They can do all that, the blood and thunder and try and get an early goal. But I don't think, in our heads, we think we're going to concede inside 3 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And once you do, all of a sudden, then the panic does set in, because that ability to maybe ease past the first 15, 20 is gone. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you're on the ropes a little bit, aren't you? And I think it was just one of them. It would be probably worthwhile just moving onto the game, isn't it? To talk about the game in general. I think after that, when we seen the team sheet come out, I don't think there was necessarily an outcry about what team we were putting on the pitch. But certainly, as soon as that first goal went in, all of a sudden you're looking and thinking this is where you'd want a Henderson in the centre of the midfield, just to calm things down and just say keep your heads, boys. And I think there was a bit of an absence of that. I would have expected Thiago to be a little bit more calmer and stuff, given his experience and his composure and what he's done in the game. And I think even his head went to, it looked like there was no leaders on the pitch a little bit, and everyone was sort of looking like who's going to grab this game by the scruff of the neck. And we just lurched from from that first goal right the way through the first half, we couldn't wait for half time, could we? Like we had to get in and get them talking to.
I felt Keita was made a little bit of a scapegoat in the first half, speaking to like other fans and on social media. He was awful, but was he worse than Thiago? Thiago was terrible, but his name didn't get mentioned. I think Robin was one of the worst players on the pitch. They didn't get mentioned. Everyone was like, get Jota and Keita off, and I was just thinking, get any of them off. Like, just get Henderson on. Like, and I think that's why the substitution didn't get made at half time. I think Klopp wanted this. I don't think he was sure about whether it was going to be Thiago or Keita, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
I don't personally think it was Keita's presence per se. I tend to agree with you, Phil. I think it was more Henderson's absence. I agree. I thought Thiago was the worst of the three in the sense that he had more chances to get his foot on the ball in the sense that the ball was dropping to him and it was just bouncing off him. And it was like losing cheap possession. He wasn't getting his body in and just, buying a foul and maybe just he was trying to be clever with it. I thought, if anything, Keita probably had the least chance to get on the ball in terms of where he was positionally. Fabinho was just as culpable because he didn't really make an effort to stamp himself on the game. Obviously, he's made up for it by going and getting that goal. But in terms of the first half performance, I agree with you, Phil. I think it was more the absence of Henderson than it was
in
presence of anyone. But they were all as bad as each other.
Where I think Mane was the only one that emerged with any credit from the first half. I thought he, out of everyone, he was trying. He was getting booted everywhere and stuff. But I think for me, when I was watching Keita, I take the point. Like I agree. I think Thiago was poor and stuff. I think the problem with Keita is Thiago was poor in midfield. Keita had a couple of chances fell to him in the box, and he just soggy shots. And then he also practically put one of their lads through 1-on-1. With like poor defensive work and sloppy back passing and stuff. So I think his just stood out a little bit more because it was like he couldn't do anything on the pitch. You know what I mean? Like even when he was getting the chances, he was snatching at them and stuff. So maybe he just stood out a little bit more. But there was no one who emerged except probably Mane for me from that first half with any credit. And it was like the worst, as you said before, Phil, that I've seen, certainly this season that I've seen us play, but probably since that horrendous
run. And I was feeling the worst. I was thinking momentum's with them here. If you're thinking who's going to win this half time, you're thinking it's going to be them. But Judgy actually calmed my nerves with a text into the group that said Liverpool can't be that bad in the second half again. That's the worst that they can be. So it's only going to get better. And I thought he's right here actually. We're going to come out a different team, and you knew Klopp was going to get into them. And I don't know whether he's sort of, because what I heard him say actually, interestingly, what Klopp does a lot of the times at half time is he has video analysis ready and says, look at this was bad, this was good. He said we couldn't find any good passenger play. He said, I asked the guy to find something, couldn't find any. So I don't know whether he's like made into them or whether he's just encouraged them, saying, look, remember who you are, remember what you've done, go out and play and whatever. But whatever he said, it worked again. And Klopp's got a history of getting the best out of this team in second half of games. I think we would typically do play better.
Yeah, I think, in the past, like we've highlighted, like, in seasons gone by where some of his substitutions have been a bit like, that was the wrong sub. Like his in-game management, I wouldn't say you can question it, but, it hasn't felt maybe as astute. Early on. But certainly more recently, his in-game management has been impeccable, to be honest. And, like you said before, where I was laughing with the lads, Henderson had been warming up since half time because it looked like he was assured to come on, and then he didn't end up coming on until about 70 odd minutes. But Diaz was just galvanised everyone. The energy that he brings on the pitch and the directness, and he's just got such enthusiasm to chase things down and graft. And not only that, he's got the quality to create things, and he was the difference. He just lifted everything. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, they didn't have it all their own way. There was an outlet there. There was someone who was just, absolutely buzzing and flying and dying to make an impact on that game. Mane goes central, which is where he's played a couple of times the last few weeks and looked really, really good. Yeah. And that one change just switched the entire dynamic of the game for me. And, it was really, really, like, as you say, good in-game management. And then when we needed to, when we had the opportunity then to bring, the likes of Henderson on and stuff and just close the game out. And, we can't, it was literally night and day performances, that second half and that first half. And, you know what I mean? At the end of it, there was hardly anyone who was coming off the pitch that you thought had a bad game in the second half. Do you know what I mean? Everyone, literally everyone, improved their performances really. So
Just on the change, obviously Jota comes off. As he and try and take this in the way the question's intended, as he suffers as a result of Diaz coming in, because you've got Mane has moved into that number 9 position. Obviously, I think that was a bit of a way of trying to find or rediscover some form for him. Diaz, as you said, has been a revelation, in terms of his impact when he comes on as a sub, but even when he starts games, he seems to be one of the better players as well. Is Jota on the slides a bit? Now, not on the slide physically, but just in terms of form. And has your perception somewhat changed of his position in that kind of 6 forwards or 5 forwards you've got?
I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. I mean, has his form dipped? It probably has a little bit, but I've never been a big fan of when he has to drop deep and builds up play and his holds up play. He's just an absolute goal scorer. He's that's how I see Jota in red. I don't know what he's been like before that, but that's how I see him in Reds. And I still think if he was in the number 9 position and getting chances, then he's still there to put them away. Still back him. But we've had some big games, haven't we? Like City and stuff like that, where you need more, where you need the build-up play and the hold-up play and stuff. And
on that one, Phil, Firmino's ahead of him, isn't it, when it comes to the build-up play?
In that moment, in them games.
At his best. And now Mane's probably ahead of him as well as an out-and-out number 9 in terms of the other sides of the game and his running in behind and his, I don't know, his just general threat.
I don't think Jota's waning as a threat. As you said, Phil, he's a proper poacher. He's a goal scorer. And yeah, he maybe isn't as good in the build-up side as Firmino and there's facets of the game, but it's horses for courses. It's just nice to have options. Don't forget Jota. It was Jota who scored at the Etihad. It's like he's got that ability in big games himself to get goals. It's just we're blessed to be able to have all of these strikers that are all in. We're saying Jota's in bad form. I think he's second leading goal scorer in the league, isn't he? And he's got assists as well. So it's all relative, isn't it? He's in poor form relative to our other world-class strikers.
That's it. I'm talking about it in relation to, obviously, the fact that you just spoke about Diaz and how much of an impact he has and how important he has been recently. And he's almost making himself going into these big games undroppable, yeah? And it's like, is it the Jota becomes more of that, let's put him on if we need a goal, than he does being like the shoe-in as your number 9?
I think so.
It's mad, isn't it, though? It's mad, but that is the case, yeah. Because if we had to play the Champions League final at the weekend, it's Diaz, Mane, and Salah, isn't it? Every Red's picking that. So it is what it is. Sports ruthless, isn't it? You can be second top goal scorer in the Prem and your 5th choice striker or 4th choice striker. So it's crazy, but it's only testament to how good Diaz is. It's not a knock on Jota in any way.
No, exactly. It's just it depends what the situation is, what the game is, and what the defense is going to be like, what you're playing against. And we've got options everywhere, and absolutely blessed to be able to bring him off or bring him on. It's dependent as we need it. So it's certainly nothing to cry about for me.
I think they dropped.
Go on, Phil.
I was going to say, I think, to be fair, we did step up, but Villarreal dropped off. The press started to drop, and they started to defend as a team deeper. Probably because no team are fit enough to play the way they played in the first half for 90, or maybe they were scared or trying to hold on to it, or, I'm not sure, but they definitely dropped off, and their keeper's a bit garbage as well, isn't he? I don't know how they got so far with that keeper, to be honest.
Well, yeah, we're a bit like that, weren't we, with Karius and Adrian, but I think you're right, and obviously they lost one of the defenders, didn't he, to injury, so it's one of them. It obviously upsets, the balance of their play, but they one of our mates said that in the group, didn't he, Mick? He said they can't possibly do this for 90 minutes, that pace that they're playing at. There's very few teams who can, so yeah, I think it was bound to be, an improved second half, and as it happens, it turned out to be a relatively comfortable win, and we're into the 3rd European Cup final in 5 seasons. So, I mean,
a lot of debate about who we want. I don't know if you saw the Mo Salah interview after the game, but it was one of the most candid interviews you'll see from a player. He just normally they give the stand answers. Who do you want? Oh, it doesn't matter. They're both great sides. He went to want Madrid.
it's not because I fear City. I think anyone in that competition should fear us, because it might be a European Cup final, but it'll feel like a Liverpool home game because our crowd always travel, and we always fill the stadiums and take loads of support with us. So, our record in that competition, I know Madrid's is absolutely stellar. One of the most record times, but I don't think any team's going to relish playing us in the final, whether it's Madrid or City. So it's not that I fear City, but for me as a Liverpool fan, I'm going to a European Cup final. I want to play a European team. I don't want to play Man City, who we've played 3 times already this season. I might end up playing them. It just doesn't feel the same. It's the same. It was boss when we beat Spurs, but it's just not the same as when you play, like a team from the continent, and it feels more like a real European final.
But also, Terry, there's still some needle there as well, isn't it? A lot of them players will have been there when Madrid beat us last time, and I think that's probably to a certain extent what he's getting at as well. We want to write that, and we want to make sure we're a better team than you were then. And I think combined, there's probably a similar amount of players on the Madrid side that are still playing that were the players in that last final. So I think that's probably what he's getting at as well. But
particularly him when he got injured, didn't he? And had to come off after 20 minutes in that one when we were looking really good at the start of that game. So he'll definitely have personal amends to make on that. You'll want him.
I think a lot of times people decide who they want to play in the final by who they'd most dislike getting beat by. I think that comes into it. And if City were to win it, it's their first one and all that. So it'd be too much to take. But flip side of the coin, in '86, I think it was when we won the double that year, didn't we? I think it was Everton who we were chasing for the league title. And with about 3 games to go, we took over them and then beat them in the FA Cup finals to do the double. And that must have felt amazing. And it would be good to do that to City, wouldn't it? That'd be a good feeling.
But I mean, it would. But it's one of them. I wouldn't want, as you say, them to get their first one over the line and for it to be against us and always have that. Yeah, we won our first one and it was against us. That would be horrible. Yeah, really horrible. So. Yeah, for me, I want Madrid. Not just because I think probably, City probably are better than Madrid. I think if we're talking about it in all honesty, I think City are a better side. But in a one-off game, against us, I don't fear either of them, if that makes sense. But I'd go for Madrid if I had the choice, if I could pick either one.
But just before we move on to the Blues, because I bet the Blues who are watching this are chomping at the bit, probably fast forwarding as we speak. So there's one more. We've got a question. We've had a few questions, but one of them via Twitter was from Saeed Patel. He said, question for the Reds. Given we had 77, 78, 81, and now we have 18, 19, 22 in terms of European Cup finals, I'm assuming he means, not knowing your history that well. Where does this squad lie in the best ever Prem squads ranking and best ever Liverpool teams ranking? Given that the European Cup is harder to achieve nowadays, I'm not sure about that, if you qualify for it compared to before.
Well, you used to have to win the league to be in it, didn't you? As opposed to...
No, but he's saying, he said, given the European Cup is harder to achieve nowadays. I'm not sure what he means by that.
There's more games. There's more games. He probably means that.
You couldn't get beat, though, could you, previously?
You couldn't get beat previously.
Knockout all the way through, wasn't it? So I think that's debatable. But in any case, the question is, obviously you guys weren't watching Liverpool at those periods, but from what you've seen, and I guess from uncles, dads, and that, what's the feeling amongst Reds?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think this is certainly the best Liverpool team I've ever seen by a mile. I think this last couple of years, shy of Man City being, basically almost as impeccable as us in terms of a pair of us are just ridiculous consistency. You literally can't slip up, otherwise you don't win the league. I think we'd have been, literally stringing title after title after title together. It's just unfortunate that we're both in that exact same moment. I mean, maybe haven't got quite as many league titles over the line as we perhaps should have done. But in where this Liverpool team ranks, I can only go off speaking to the likes of my dad and stuff like that who've obviously followed Liverpool for 50 years, and he says this is the best Liverpool team he's ever seen. It even more dominant in terms of on the pitch. The way that they sort of just close games out, the consistency. We just don't lose many games. I think we played 57 games now this season, and we've lost 3. And none of them have been by more than 2 goals. So it's a ridiculous level, and we've done that for a couple of seasons now, season after season after season. So I think you've got to say that this is one of the best Liverpool teams ever, haven't you, Phil? And where it ranks in terms of the Premier League all-time teams, we unfortunately haven't won it enough times to really say, but it's got to be
on that. United are probably the best Premier League ever, but it wasn't. We're talking about one squad. United built multiple squads, so we're just comparing their best ever squad to this best ever squad. And if we go on to win a treble or the quad, then it will. No, you'll have to just say this is the best team that there's ever been ever. But I think
they won a treble. They won league after league. They won FA Cups. They won doubles. So it's not
all
just
different squads. All different squads. Yeah, which ones do you want to pick?
No one's looking at different squads. Are they looking at the Man United or
That's
Liverpool?
the question.
That's the question, isn't it?
No, the question is this: is this squad better than any squad we've ever seen?
The question didn't mention Man United. It was you that said about
Man
United.
It was about your previous teams. It wasn't
Premier
about
League teams.
Other teams, was it?
Well, it said in the context of the best Premier League teams ever. It said in the question, didn't it?
Yeah. So you can't just pick United over a 10-year span. Which was their best team? Was it in the 90s? Well, everyone knows that. It was Beckham, Scholes, Keane. Are we better than that on United side?
Yeah, probably the 99 team, wasn't it, that won the treble? But I mean, it's a tough one to answer, isn't it? But if you look at when you need basically 97, 98, 99, 100 points to win a Premier League now, which is what the standards that us and City have set. Man United never had that standard being set for them. Neither did Arsenal or Chelsea. What was their record points total ever? Man U's in a league win, was it 91
like 80, late 80s, 90 or something?
Yeah, so it's very, very rare, and as I say, it's literally the case now that you almost can't lose more than 2 games a season, otherwise you're out the running, and that's a ridiculous.
But it wouldn't. I guess wouldn't you say, or wouldn't a Ferguson or anyone in that team say, well, you only amass as many points as you need to. If someone else would have stepped up, we would have stepped up with them. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you're so far ahead, which they were in many seasons there, you don't have to go and get 98 points, do you? You rest teams in certain games to go and fight on all fronts. Now, I'm not arguing with what you're saying, but I think you would get arguments from the other side, wouldn't you, to say that?
But we still got what was it that we put up when we won it? It was a 99-point season.
Yeah, but you needed to, though, didn't you? Virtually.
Didn't we basically won it by just after Christmas? We were about 18 points clear or something.
You didn't win the league by 20 points.
We won it by a ridiculous amount because we were going for Man City's 100. They'd done 100 points, and we were saying we're going to finish on over 100 points, and we took our foot off the gas. I think we finished on 99 points the year we won it. So,
by 18 points.
The year you won it, though, you didn't win anything else, did you? So that's the point. Is like
I think the point I'd make is that
no competitions either.
Say again,
the point I'd make is if you do win a quadruple, then yeah, but you've got United won the treble. Do you know what I mean? They've done it, so you've got to win it. It's no point if you just end up with. I know it's just, but it's not just because it's a big achievement. But if you end up with the Champions League and the Carabao Cup this season, that team won't go down in history as one of the best because you've got Man United won a treble. That's the reason why they're looked at as the best because they won it. So it's only in history when you look back. We'll know that they were a boss team, but unless you win that many things, that's what I'm trying to make.
I guess that's why we're referring to past Liverpool teams. They won a treble, you know what I mean, and they've won doubles and trebles with leagues and stuff. So. We won it. All right, we didn't win it with the FA Cup. We won it the League Cup, and the European Cup. But so, I think you're right. If we end up finishing the season with a Carabao Cup, it's like, you know what I mean. But I think in terms of when you're looking back at what they won, then it wouldn't go down as one of the great teams. But I still think in terms of dominance on the pitch and consistency of results, I think you could still look at it and say in terms of performances, this Liverpool team is one of the best teams the Premier League's ever seen in terms of
it's nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible to do like a player by player analysis because United are very much 4-4-2, weren't they, with wingers, and we don't play like that. So you can't even do it that way where you say
all you can compare is I think all you can compare is what they win at the end of the day. Now I'm saying if you win more, then fair enough, but you've got it's judged on what you win, isn't it? That's what it comes down to. And if City win the Champions League and the league this year, are they the best team? Are they one of the best teams ever? Could you flip it that way? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I think
by how much win at the end of the day. But I don't disagree with you. Liverpool are brilliant. I mean, I haven't watched this for weeks, but I think he's a boss. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is about what you win, as you say. And I think if we win it or City win it, I think either one of them teams is going to be ranked as one of the best teams, the Premier League's ever seen and probably ever. If either of them teams win a league and Champions League, even if it's only a double this season, I think, given that you're doing it and you're putting up 90-odd point seasons and you've been doing it for a couple of seasons consecutively, I think, you have to.
One thing I will throw in, it was before the major money when United was doing it. They really took advantage of that Premier League money and they didn't really have a financial competitor in the league. Now there's loads.
One thing I'll throw in is this is a Man United and Liverpool podcast, so we're going to move on now, lads. It's half an hour. We're starting to get into the realms of talking about how great Liverpool are, which is
can't be helped, Judge. Can't be helped.
You can go and have your own podcast then. So we're gonna.
You go down.
We're gonna forget exactly, but that's hopefully that's a lot less likely now. So on that note, Pricey, huge game, obviously Sunday. I've got to be honest, it wasn't. We already started doing that, or we started doing that weeks ago, where you look at games that we think we should be winning, where we could pick points up. I wouldn't say it's a game that I didn't think we could pick points up, but it wasn't a game that I had down as, an opportunity for 3 points. But massive result, and as you put so well in your analysis, the instant match reaction. It was a huge performance, wasn't it, from the players and the fans?
Yeah, and you're right. It weren't one that you would have a look and say that's 3 points. But as soon as Burnley won on the Saturday, it did become a game that we it was a must win in the end for us. And the players stepped up and done exactly what they were expected of them in terms of attitude and determination and all those type of words. Quality wasn't. I mean, you say quality wasn't as high as it could have been, but I think we had as many, if not more, clear-cut chances than Chelsea, and it could have been more. But it was the Burnley result for me on the Saturday, and the Burnley game. That was the result that made you think, no, we've got to beat Chelsea. I wouldn't have took a draw. We had to win. The fact that we have won, I don't think changes. I don't think it changed anything in terms of the fact that I think we're more likely to stay up than we were previously. But if we'd have lost, I think we were definitely down. And I think that's the difference. I don't think it's that we've won, so let's happy days, we're going to stay up. It just keeps us
I think for me, I think it's gave us more belief, hasn't it? That this team has maybe got a bit more steel and a bit more about them than we thought. I think certainly go back 6 games ago, and you got pundits in the media who are going, "Oh, they got Richarlison, they'll be all right, he'll get goals," and we're going, "Well, he hasn't scored for however long." Richarlison's got 5 goals in his last 5 games. He's scored important goals that are winning us games. We had one chance, pretty much one touch, if you like, at the weekend, and he scores. And you've got the back four now with Yerry Mina back in it that looks like they're capable of keeping clean sheets. You've got Pickford who's pulled out some brilliant saves and generally is in very good form. So you've got a lot more players now, haven't you? They're looking like they're playing well.
Yeah, and you have, and you've got a system that Lampard sort of landed on. Whether it's out to because there's injuries and he's been forced to do it, or whether he's just been waiting for players to come back. I don't mean Delph too. You could say that about. But when he first came in, he obviously wasn't but he wasn't. I don't think he was expecting us to be anywhere near relegation at this stage of the season. So he was coming and he was trying to play the way he would want to play in the future, and pressing high and all that type of thing. But then he's landed on this formation, this way of playing where we knew we as fans, because we've seen us so often, we knew that this is how we would have had to play to stay up. We would have had to do what we're doing now. But it took him a while and a few weeks to sort of bed in and make sure and get it right. And obviously working on the training ground. So yeah, he's got players that have come in who are stepping up. Players like Iwobi are stepping up. As you say, Mina coming back in. There's others who've impressed. Mikalenko, I think, has done really well and shown a different side to themselves.
Mason Holgate. Mason Holgate. I couldn't have thought any less of him. Only 6 weeks ago, and I'm not lauding him now as some brilliant player. I think you're right. I think the system has complemented some of the players. I think some of the key personalities, as we both just touched on there, Mina and Delph, have had a good influence on certain players. We've always said about Holgate, haven't we? If he stays out of the game and you don't see him, he's playing well. It's when he's actually flying into challenges and he's getting booked and he's sticking his chest out and all that. That's the Mason Holgate we don't want to see. He's got enough attributes, hasn't he, to be a Premier League player. He don't play as many games as he's played without being that. But far too often, we see him for the wrong reasons, don't we?
Yeah, and that comes down to who he's paired with in defence. If you're next to, an underperforming Michael Keane who's got no confidence, you might feel like you have to overcompensate for that as well. Yeah, so that comes into it. But let's have them for what they are for this, for the effort they've put in, and hope that they can. And it's a big if. Hope if they can continue that going forward and put in those type of performances like they did against Liverpool. To be fair, we got beat and all that, but the performance was there, the attitude was there. If they can do that and ride out to the end of the season, it doesn't make me think that suddenly you want Holgate in your defence for next season. You've still got to make those calls and get rid of a lot of those players. But but they're stepping up to it. They've stepped up to it certainly in the last few weeks, and you can only hope that they continue to do so too. So the worrying thing for me, and home games, I'll take anyone at home after the last few home games we've had. Last 4 games, quite a good record. It's the away games that I'm still really nervous about. Even you Watford away, I'm nervous about that game because even though they're pretty much down, nothing to play for, it's just a mad one that the fans have got, and especially on Sunday, obviously, but the fans have got such a big influence of Goodison. If the fans aren't up for it, the players don't play well. It's as simple as that. Yeah. It happened. I remember the Aston Villa game. It happened when Ferguson took over the fight. It was just a quiet ground. And
Leicester at home was like that, weren't it? Remember Leicester? You sat by me at Leicester at home, and you were going to me. I thought the fans would be more up for it today, and I kind of looked at you just to say, and then you corrected yourself and went, "But to be fair, the players haven't really gave us anything."
No, it's catch-22, isn't it? But Sunday showed that we've got a job to play ourselves. Whether you like it or not, we've got a job. But yeah, it's the away games. Going back to the away games that I'm still worried about. I'm still not. There's been that many twists and turns. Even like getting beat at Burnley, then they lost at Norwich, then we beat Man United. There's more to come. There's still 4 or 5 games to go for everyone. Yeah. There's more twists and turns to come, I think. And it's just I'm still nervous. But Sunday was a huge sigh of relief, and at the final whistle, you could feel the relief and everyone singing and stuff. And that's not because I said it on Sunday. It's not because we think we're safe or because we've won anything. It's just the relief that we're still in it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other one, obviously, on the race to stay up is Leeds are now massively in it, aren't they? I mean, we were looking maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago going, we just need to stay above Burnley. You're now looking at it going, actually, it's probably Leeds that you're targeting. If you're looking at anyone's coattails, it's Leeds that we want to pull in.
Yeah, and that's purely because of Leeds' games that they got coming up. Yeah, they got difficult games coming up compared to Burnley. I mean, it is, but as I say, it might change again. But yeah, Leeds seems to be the team that if we can pick up, I don't know, if we can pick up 7-9 points, are Leeds going to pick up enough points to stay up? If we do pick up 9 points, does that see us safe? Are we relying on Leeds to? Well, obviously we are relying on Leeds to drop a few as well because we're not going to win every game. So it becomes interesting that way. I mean, Burnley have got Villa twice, and that's they Aston Villa can basically.
They got the flip flops on, haven't they, to some extent? They won at the week. They won at the weekend, Villa, but now they've probably literally got the flip flops on, haven't they? There's nothing going out. Villa, they're up. They can't go pretty much any higher than the team.
This is a perfect time to bring in a question we've had on Twitter from Saeed Patel. He said, if Leeds, Burnley and Everton keep form, could the teams on 40 points have to seriously worry about survival? And in the future, will safety points tally be higher than 40?
Well, I actually said that to a few people after the results of the weekend, and obviously Burnley's results as well. You look at Southampton now, and I'm looking at our fixtures, Pricey, and I'm saying optimistically, 3 wins is a realistic target out of our last 5 games, considering that we've got home games in there, obviously, that we've been strong in, and we've got a Leicester team that will be focusing on the European exploits as opposed to, domestic. So I think 9 points is our target to get above 40 points. That puts us on 41. I think Leeds are on 34 now. Is that right? Leeds on 34. 34. They'll be targeting 2 wins, you'd imagine, at least out of the last 4 games, given that they've got a tough run in as well. Burnley will be the same. They'll be targeting 2 wins. That puts both of them on 40 and us on 41. You can't, I don't know how Southampton can not be slightly concerned, given how dreadful their form is. Like, I think it's one win in the last 11 games or something for Southampton, and maybe 4 points in that time.
Yeah,
at this moment now,
haven't they, Southampton? And I've just looked at the fixtures. It's Brentford, us, and Leicester. You probably expect them to get. You just said there, Leicester are basically, probably concentrating on Europe and stuff like that. And I don't know. If you're Southampton, I can't see them getting reeled in now.
They need one win, Southampton. They need one win. But the longer that goes on, if they lose at the weekend, I don't know when they're playing, if they lose the next game, then it will be a bit squeaky for them. And especially if us and or Leicester and or Leeds or Burnley get a result, then they will be looking over the shoulders. But yeah, they only need one. But you know what it's like sometimes if the pressure's on and those teams like us, Burnley, Leeds, are fighting for it and are picking up points, you might be worried. But yeah, one win. I think Southampton are all right.
To answer the second part of the question, that 40-point number has come from a combination of mathematical formula to say that, like, on average, there's a very, very small percentage chance of you going down on 40 points. But also, it's been historic data, hasn't it, of the teams that have managed to stay up. And I think one thing that you'd probably have to bring into the mix, which is a fair point, obviously following on from your section before, is Liverpool and City have been so strong and beating everyone. And the other teams are a lot closer now. You go from 5th all the way down to us. Any of those teams, as you've seen at the weekend, can beat anyone. So they're probably taking more points off each other. And that's probably what's raised the bar slightly higher, potentially, this season. I don't think it's necessarily something that you'd say every year is going to be, let's move it up to 42 points. But it may be if Liverpool and City keep maintaining that gap between themselves and 4th to 5th, and that gap between 3rd down to 16th gets closer and closer in terms of the quality, then it may well be that 40 number goes up over the next few seasons. But I guess it's one of them, isn't it?
I think the opposite, to be honest. I think this has been a bit of an anomaly season. I think last season you needed 29 points to stay up. I agree with what you're saying. Anyone below probably top 6, top 7 are all taking points off each other. I think the top 5 or top 6 will start. You've got 5 subs next year as well, which comes into, which will be a massive thing, probably a discussion for another day. But when you start having 5 subs, you've got your top 5, top 6. I think they'll just take more and more points off the bottom half. And I think it'll actually be around, I don't think it'll go up from 40. I think 35 to 40 is probably the target because of that. So I think people start getting less points, and the teams, and it depends how good the championship teams are that come up as well. If they're not up for it, then it becomes, they lower the bar even further, don't they?
The other one you've had this season, I guess, as well, is the whole Newcastle takeover has completely flipped it, hasn't it? Yeah. Had Newcastle not been taken over and signed those 5 players and whatever, and new manager and all the momentum that came with it, they're probably still on 20-odd points, aren't they? But that's obviously not happened, and that's drove up the standards or drove up the expectation from a points perspective on all the other clubs. But really interesting question. I think just going on to this weekend, and we'll go back to the Reds in terms of their fixture as well. Leicester away. I mean, Leicester play for Wednesday now. Leicester play tomorrow against Roma, the second leg of their Conference League semi-final, or whatever the competition's called. If they do pull off a result against Roma, their focus will firmly be on that final and keeping their best players fresh, because I think that's been the formula for Brendan Rodgers. Every time he plays in that competition, they've made 6 or 7 changes at the weekend. I'm not sure he'll be so inclined to do so if they get beat, because he's probably thinking, I just want to keep playing my best players now and getting what results I can to probably keep my job, because, if they end up finishing in the bottom half and also haven't reached any kind of, or haven't achieved anything in Europe, you probably say that he's one of them people who maybe the board are looking at thinking, can we replace him? So I think in a weird way, a lot does rely on that result against Roma on Thursday.
It does, yeah. You definitely want them to beat Roma and have something else to play for.
Extra time would be nice as well, wouldn't it?
Extra time would be lovely, yeah. Because they done it was Newcastle, was it Newcastle game? They made loads of changes before our game, and Newcastle won. And I didn't watch all the game, but I watched a lot of it, and Leicester looked really poor as well. And I think at home, when we played them the other week, they had loads of possession, but they had the strongest team out against us last week or the week before, whenever it was. They had loads of possession, but they didn't really have that many chances. And I think if we set up in the same way as we did on Sunday, where it's that hard to beat system and try and get one, and they've got a team that's not the strongest team, then
Well, I think there was 3 players, weren't there, for Leicester on that day? Goodison, where you just thought they're good players. Then there was Dewsbury Hall, who I think is an outstanding player. I think he's come up massively this year. You've got Harvey Barnes, and you've got what's his name in the middle, the
Tielemans.
Yeah, they're the 3 key players, aren't they, for Leicester, in terms of like they've got a bit of quality about them, a bit of guile. Take them out of that team, and you've got a Brendan Rodgers team who likes to keep the ball, but have just got no cutting edge at all.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hoping for, isn't it, really? That type of team that I'll have loads of possession, but for us, it'll be easy to kind of win the ball off and counter and frustrate.
Yeah, and we're looking good as a counter-attacking team, as I said before. He's landed on a system that seems to work out of necessity, but it works. I think we look good on the break. I said against Chelsea, we had a couple of chances on the break that, you know, if we'd have took them, the Mikalenko one, there was a couple of us in Gordon had one. If we'd have took them, you know, you're looking at a couple of goals. So I think we set up really well for that, and we've got the players, we've got this, you know, the speed up front to play that system. So I think it might suit us to have to do that on Sunday.
I was just going to say, I think looking back at the lineup, and obviously not over-analysing it, what he's tried to do is to just get all of our pace in the team, hasn't he? He's got every player that's kind of got something about them in terms of legs and got them on the team sheet. I mean, even Damari Gray's found a way to get an extra 10% off the ball, hasn't he? He's starting to work a lot harder than he has done. But he's also extremely fit. Something that I did see in an article, actually, it was an Iwobi one over the last few days. Iwobi's had quite a bit of coverage in terms of how he's adapted his game. And Iwobi was saying he'd done like lactate. And I'm going to go back to this. Phil was talking about this a few years ago and we were ripping him. Obviously, that without going over too scientific, the clubs do these tests, not lactate in terms of breast milk or nothing like that. They do these tests in relation to the oxygen levels in your blood and what your VO2 max is and whatever. And our 4 highest scoring players were Doucouré, Iwobi, Gray, and Townsend. Obviously, Townsend's not in the picture at the moment due to injury, but the other 3 players are the fittest in terms of the capacity to last those 90 minutes. So Iwobi was talking about how surprised Frank Lampard was when he come across this data, and he basically pulled Iwobi and said, "Look, can you show me it a bit more? Can you show that you've got those legs and maybe run a bit more in the game? Because I'm taking you off after 60 minutes thinking you're tired, when clearly you've got a lot more in the tank." And apparently that's the same message he's give to Gray, is to say, look, you need to show me more running because you've clearly got it in the tank. And, you know, I don't want to be taking you off after 50, 60 minutes, which maybe has, you know, that been going on previously.
And that's right as well, because what we did used to, even under previous managers, he's always been the one to come off, probably fitness as well as performance, but he's always been the one that you've tried to bring off. But yeah, it's interesting, and it's all those fine margins, isn't it? That's what it's all about. It's finding those fine margins. You're talking about Liverpool teams and how Klopp's got them. I'm sure there's loads of analysis going on in the background about who he plays and when he plays them and how long they get and how many minutes they get. And it's all about those little fine things that we need to improve on. I mean, looking at the Leicester game, I know we're looking at against Chelsea. We played a bit of a formation, a bit of a 5 at the back. But now we've got Calvert-Lewin coming. I think he's 5th for Sunday and stuff. Just interesting. What do you reckon you'll go for, or what would you go for yourself? Not in terms of player by player, who would you play? But would you?
I personally wouldn't change anything. I think even with Calvert-Lewin coming back, I think the home games are what we potentially. You want Calvert-Lewin, you want to be able to play him in the games that you think, like, I don't know, like a Watford away, I think is a good one for Calvert-Lewin, where we're maybe going to have a bit more of the ball, or we're going to have a bit more territorial advantage, and you want a target in there to keep that ball in their third of the pitch. I still want to stick with that blueprint of legs and energy and you know, really hitting them on the break and you know, making it very difficult for them to have good possession in the right areas. I think the way that he's been playing Iwobi in that kind of almost like right wing back position, which I think, if I'm honest, has been to compensate for the fact that Coleman hasn't got the legs anymore. He knows that Mikalenko can actually get up and down the pitch. I just don't think he's confident that Coleman can do the same, and he maybe wants to give him that extra support in there, which Iwobi's done really well. And you're also allowing one of them wingers, which, you know, whether it's Anthony Gordon or Damari Gray, to cheat, aren't you? Because you've got that extra kind of wide player in there. So I'd be sticking to that. I hope that, you know, Delph doesn't get injured and he stays in there, because, as I say, he's been a really good influence. But he showed by the change that he made with 25 minutes to go to Alan that they can both offer a very similar service to the team, can't they?
Yeah. And it's good use of Alan and Delph that rather than playing them together. You've got Decore, who's got the legs in midfield. You might as well just rotate them game by game, or just say half each or 60 and 30 or whatever, however you want to do it.
How good was it to see Decore getting back in the box again as well? Do you know what I mean? And showing that kind of box to box, type profile that what we bought, really. That's what we were after, weren't we?
Yeah, and he's done it the last couple of games, but I think he looks like a confidence player to me, Decore. He looks like he's just massively low on confidence this season. Whether I know he got injured, and I think I said on the previous podcast, but he just looked like he never quite got back and quite got his form back. But a couple of good games and he's flying again. But like you say, it's not just defensively, it's not just working hard, it's getting up and making the runs and going past the last man to try and get on the end of stuff. Because that, as you say, that's what he is. That's what we bought, and that's what you want him to do. And he's if he can do that and keep it up, he's an asset to have in your team.
Definitely. So, on that note, then prediction for Sunday, then, Pricey.
I'll go a draw probably. I'd love my heart saying that we'll go and win after we'll get the momentum after the Chelsea game and we'll beat them. But my head's probably saying that we'll probably get a draw given our away record this season. I think we might get nervous if we go one up. The nerves might kick in as they did in previous games as well. So I'd say a draw.
I'm gonna go for 2-1 to us. I think we might get ahead in that game, but I think Leicester maybe bringing some of the players off the bench that have maybe played in the week might change the dynamic of the game in the second half. But I think we'll get a couple of goals in front and then try and hold on. But I fancy us to win there. So obviously, Reds, you've got another huge game at Anfield against at times can be something of a kryptonite in terms of the style of play that Tottenham at times have thrown at you. The game at their ground, they set up exactly how you probably wouldn't want a team to set up against you and exploited what can sometimes be vulnerabilities on the break. Obviously, it's a different kettle of fish at Anfield, and Tottenham can be a little bit hot and cold as well. What are you expecting on Saturday?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Tottenham, because we've got a good record against them, but obviously when we play teams, we don't change the way we play. I think we're sort of, we've got the ability to go and play our way in pretty much every game, even whether that be City or anyone else. And the thing with that means that we get our fullbacks up the pitch and stuff, and that suits Spurs. The way they play. Whenever I watch them, if they have a lot of the ball, they're awful. Like if they're expected to go and play against like a low block or something, they really struggle because they rely on them runners in Son and Kane and stuff behind. Like balls through that they can run onto with loads of space to gallop into, and that you'd look at that and think that is the perfect way to play against this Liverpool team. Bide your time. You're at Anfield. You've got pace, up front, so that can get in behind. And in Trent and Robertson, you've got fullbacks that will leave gaps. Less so Robertson, a bit more Trent. But that being said, we've still got a pretty good record against them, haven't we, Phil? But it is one that you're looking at out of all the fixtures and probably thinking, they have had a bit of a resurgence under Conte, and in some of them players, they have got talent in that team, and it is one we've got to be very careful of, isn't it?
Yeah, I said we were looking at Leeds, and I previously said maybe West Ham. When you're looking at City's fixtures, I'm praying for, drop points there. City are looking at this game against Spurs and thinking this is the one where we might come unstuck. And yeah, I just think you've said it all, really. You've said all the key areas where we've got to worry. You've obviously got depth in strikers. If we have a first half like we did against Villarreal, we'll struggle to win that game. But, if we come at it at our best at Anfield, I think they're not that good. They're also not that good. You know what I mean? I think I can also see us bowling them away. So it's hard to predict, isn't it? You never know what side you're going to get. But I'm not too worried, to be honest, Teddy. I'm not too worried.
Yeah, for me, it's just how do you approach the game? Again, is it one that you sort of ease your way into and feel your way into, or do you just try and get the game won, which is what we've done over the last few weeks? We've sort of tried to get the game won and get players off, and get them rested up for the next one to come. And it's whether we'll do that against Spurs. I didn't expect us to do it against City, but not in the league game, but in terms the semi-final and stuff. But that's what we did. We started the game really fast, and it was like we raced into a lead by half time, and it's just whether we do that against Spurs, because I think that suits us best, but they've got the quality if you do leave any gaps behind.
In an ideal world, I'll start every game like that because that is the best Liverpool, but it's probably just not possible for humans to do twice a week. We have got a game against Villa midweek and then the FA Cup final on Saturday, but I think if you're going to rest anyone or anything like that, you're probably looking at that. I think you go absolutely full strength, like your Champions League final team against Tottenham. So that's what I'd do. None of this Keita starting above Henderson business. I'd go full strength against Tottenham and then maybe bring Keita back in or something, or Jota back in for Villa.
Yeah, so start Diaz, Mane, Salah.
Yeah, Fabinho, Henderson and Thiago. No messing about. No Kante either. None of that. I'd just go full strength against Tottenham and get it done. I think our best team at Anfield against Tottenham, we just get it done.
Yeah,
I fancy him to start Gomez at right back. I just feel like it's one of them games where he seems to be doing it against teams that play like really aggressive high wingers, and Kulusevski and Son are exactly that. I think he might start Gomez just to give that extra bit of protection to that ball in behind, which is what the Tottenham will be looking to do.
Yeah, I just can't see it. I don't think he'll rest Trent for that game. I think it's too big a game and too important. If he puts Gomez in and then we look at it and think, without Trent, we didn't have as much attack and thrust and we looked a bit... No, I think I can very, very much see Gomez coming on in that position once we're ahead in the game, if we get ahead in the game. But I don't think we'll start him there against Spurs, if I'm honest.
No, we don't want a deep line. You want a high line. Like... I know you're thinking.
It's not a deep line, is it? It's never a deep line.
He was brilliant when he started there the other game. I can't think who it was against now. But we started him at right back and he was brilliant. He was getting forward and he was getting balls, and I thought he had the boss game.
Was that Chelsea? No.
United, was it? United, no.
No. It was only recently. It was only a couple of games ago. I can't even think who it was now.
Anyway,
yeah, I remember.
Predictions, thanks. We're almost at our cap of an hour. We'll get kicked out.
Okay, 3-1 I'm going to go with. You can see them getting a goal, but I think we'll blow them away at the other end of the pitch. 3-1.
I'm going to say Liverpool 2-1.
Okay, brilliant. So again, we'll be back next Monday, guys, because Liverpool have got a fixture on Tuesday. So we'll catch you all next week. If the predictions all go the way that everyone's expecting them to, then it looks like it sounds like it'll be another positive week for both sides of Merseyside. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll catch you all again next week.